Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am thrilled to share with you guys today a brand new segment of my Fighting for Your Marriage series, and it's called the Worthy Woman Interviews. I will be interviewing women that the Lord has been highlighting to me who walk in the wisdom of Jesus in their marriages. I'm here with my friend Alex Sasser, and I actually know her through her husband who grew up with me on the same street. So I'm super excited to be doing my first ever Worthy Woman interview with Alex because her heart is golden. And I would say what I know of her marriage so far is that it is a big adventure. They got married at a pretty young age, immediately picked up everything and moved from their hometown into a big city where they didn't know anyone to pursue dreams. Then a few years later, they moved to Costa Rica. Alex actually birthed her first baby in Costa Rica, and now she has two beautiful children, and they're back in the States, by the way. And they just released their first single that they wrote together and recorded together called Safe Place. Check it out on any streaming platform.
Thank you so much for having me on your interview. I'm so excited. This is awesome. I love what you do here, so thank you for asking me.
So how many years have you been married?
Yeah, so Jordan and I have been married for 8 years. Which is crazy. Yeah, we got married super young. I think I was 19 and he was like 23, I think. So yeah, we were super, we very young. But 8 years, it's been 8 years.
That's awesome. Did you guys do anything fun for your anniversary?
Oh my goodness, yes. My husband is so kind. Every year we go on a anniversary trip. So I mean, we sit down together and talk about every trip nowadays because we're like, oh my goodness, we have to keep track. It's been 8 years. So yeah, I mean, trips to New York or back to Costa Rica where we did mission work there. I mean, we get a babysitter or parents or someone to take care of our kiddos for a week so that we can just have one-on-one time for our anniversary trip because both of our birthdays are near our anniversary, so we just kind of go all out. And so we do lots of fun anniversary things.
I love it. All right, let's get into the tough questions. Okay, so I recently did a survey on my Instagram page asking people, what is the one thing that you fight about most in your marriage, or what is one thing that you find very challenging in your marriage? The most common answer I got for both of those questions was communication. And so I wanted to talk to you today about communication and specifically in regards to resolving conflict. So was it ever challenging for you and your husband to resolve conflict, and how did you overcome that?
Oh my goodness, yes. The answer is yes, yes, yes. So much trouble with conflict. I mean, even to this day, we have conflict. It looks different. It's definitely a practice. But man, some people look at us and are like, you never fight? What? You're so happy and you love each other. But no, we fight. We get it. Fights can be ugly and hard, and man, we have been there. So yes, communication, just having conflict is super tough. We are definitely not perfect and we still have conflict, but we have learned how to communicate better. We've learned to slow down in our communication. We've set boundaries in our communication. I know some of you guys out there, as well as us, can struggle with anger, and I get so angry sometimes I have to leave, and so we'll set boundaries on that, don't drive away, don't yell like crazy. You have to set these boundaries so that in the moment you're like, okay, I know a safe place, I know where I can go to leave or whatever you need to do, but I have a boundary on it so that things don't get out of hand. Slowing down is huge for us, slowing down in our communication. We've learned to communicate about everything because things, bottle up and they just can explode. So we communicate. And honestly, the biggest thing that's helped us in our conflict is knowing our differences. So we have looked into personality things like Enneagram. I don't know if you've heard of that. or I say this, you hear that, like the colors, like what color. Anyway, anything that you can like read about or discover more that teaches you about yourself and how you react, how you hold in sadness or hurt, whatever. It just allows you to realize, oh, this is how I'm wired, and we can communicate knowing and understanding that we are so different, and that, you know, maybe he's not trying to be mean, but maybe he just doesn't have any emotion right now. He truly, you know, stuff like that, which just helped us realize that this is just the way we're wired, and our communication is going to look different between us. And one thing, last thing I'll say about conflict is recently the Lord told me this so clearly. He said, Alex, you, at the end of every conflict, no matter how long, days or whatever, how long it takes, you're going to end with like this love and grace towards each other. And so he said, love and grace is always the answer. And that helped me, because I thought, well, in the moment, I'm thinking, well, I got to tell him that, you know, he hurt me when he said this. And, you know, he's not allowed to do this. And I can't believe that, blah, 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 blah. And I have to make sure my point gets across. But knowing that love and grace is the destination, and that is literally always the answer, helps me that in the moment, I'm like, you know what? I think I can be humble and have grace on him and know that he's not perfect either. And I'm not perfect. And so I'm not perfect either. So you can just have grace on each other and yourself, and to just kind of humble yourself and get over it, and just remind yourself that we love each other. Jordan said recently, we love each other. Can that just be it? Like, yes. You know what? That's what we're always going to come back to. We love each other. So, yeah.
I love that. And I love that you said slowing down, because
Yes.
if you don't slow down, then you're not able to like remember the love and grace and those types of things in the moment of conflict when things get pretty heated. All right, next question. So, are you guys intentional about growing and building up a healthy marriage? And if so, how have you done this?
Awesome. Okay. I love this question because we have like this tool bag. We call them tools, and they help us so much. It's these little nuggets of wisdom that just help us in an argument get over it. The first one is HALT, and I know some of you might have heard of this. HALT. If you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, that's HALT, HALT. That means you gotta halt, and you fix one of those things. You think, okay, let's halt and let's talk about this in the morning because I'm so tired. Let's halt, let's have dinner first, or like let's talk about this, or let's halt and know that I've been with the kids all day and I have had no adult communication. I'm just lonely, and I'm projecting my loneliness on you, or you know, whatever it is. I'm angry and I need to cool down. So those 4 things have helped us to just, you know, remind yourself and just keep in check. Are you one of these things? We got to stop talking right now and continue when we're in a better place. Also, the biggest one that my husband, it's his favorite, it's called rephrase that. So if someone said something super snooty or rude or something, and you can tell there's something underneath what they're saying, you can say, can you rephrase that? Instead of, oh my goodness, no, I can't believe you, or the way you said that sounded so, whatever. You can say, can you rephrase that? And that just allows the other person to think like, okay, yeah, that was a little mean the way I just said that. And I can ask them my question or tell them what I need to tell them in a more loving way. So we love rephrase that. We also, this one's probably my favorite, and it is reflect me. So we have a mentor who's told us these, and honestly, they've helped us so much. So reflect me just says like, hey, can you reflect me? Like, I just poured out my heart, and I just really tried my best to stay calm, and I really want you to hear that. So can you reflect me? And he'll say, yeah, I heard you say that it hurts you when I do this, or when I came in and I was this, like you were that, whatever it is. But you just say, can you reflect me? And the other person can just repeat what they've heard you say. And then you can be like, well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Or yes, thank you for understanding that. Also, I use this one, it's, I need a minute. And so that kind of goes with HALT. But sometimes I can just feel my emotions boiling up, and I just want to like drive away, like I said earlier. And that's not anything helpful. So you can say, I need a minute. And we've set in place already, like, okay, that would be max 10 minutes. and you always want to let the person know like when we're going to pick up the conversation or whatever, but I need a minute, or like, don't talk to me for just a minute, I'm going to go to the other room. It's all about talking and slowing down, and so that one's really great. I need a minute. And even this, like, I'm so thankful that we have learned this skill, but if your fights are so fiery, grab a talking stick, and you can have a talking stick, and whoever's holding the stick, they get to talk, and then they pass the stick to the other person, and then they talk. And so that's just like this talking stick. That's a tool that when things are really tough and you can tell that you're both kind of fighting for the conversation, you can just separate, like, okay, it's my turn, or you can set a timer or something. And if your spouse isn't willing to do any of those, you can ask them. You can say, hey, in our next, like, if we have this come up again, like, what is something I can ask you, or what is something I can do to help you, or to understand you better? So y'all can think of your own tools, and you can ask each other what would be helpful. Those are just some that are helpful for us.
I love those tools because they are in the moment tools, and I feel like a lot of times I've tried, like, oh, we need to have set times that we sit down and really try to communicate and go deep, and that's like, for us personally, it's very awkward, and it doesn't really resolve much. And so I just love like those in the moment that you can just take care of something and redirect things in the moment. What if you have a spouse that there's kind of a lack of communication issues, so it's really hard for them to share anything? Like, what would you say in that situation?
Yeah, I would encourage you to ask that person, like, hey, can we write out some things that help you kind of dig down and discover what's really going on in your heart? Or if there's truly nothing, if there is like a phrase that we can just say, like, babe, this is it. I'm telling you, I don't feel anything right now. I'm good.
That's good. Writing down, I think, helps for
Yeah.
people that don't like to communicate verbally. Okay, so since you've been so intentional in building your marriage, has this resulted in your love growing deeper over the years? So basically, like, from the first year that you were married, has your love grown now that you're in your 8th year of marriage? And what does that kind of look like?
Yes. I love that question, because honestly, it's encouraging looking back, because we talk about these conflicts and arguments, but really every argument, that's where you're growing. If you allow those moments to let your relationship actually move forward, then that's what's growing your love deeper and deeper. So I think with every argument, you can grow a deeper understanding of each other, and you can allow it to be a teaching moment for each other. And once you're on the other side of that, you're like, wow, babe, I love you. We're good now. And because of that, I know you in a deeper way. I love you in a deeper way, because although we've been through that, love is my decision, is my choice. And I've decided to love you. And so that kind of just grows your love, man, because it's like you can look back and think we've been through so much together. And the fact that we're choosing to love each other is huge. So, and I think that in every argument, we're truly just getting over ourselves. What I've learned is, like, it doesn't, at the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if Jordan hears my point of view. I need to make sure I'm communicating with the Lord and truly letting go and doing my part to communicate who I am and what I'm feeling to Jordan. But at the end of the day, my job is to love him and to get over myself and to become more and more like Jesus. That's sanctification, just getting over yourself and knowing that things aren't going to be perfect. So in all these years, man, it's like getting over yourself makes you love that person deeper, because all of your just sinful nature is getting out of the way, and you can truly love that person on a deeper level.
That's so good. So speaking of that, it reminds me of that verse in Ephesians 5 where it says that wives submit to their husbands as the head of the house, just like Christ is the head of the church. And then husbands, their call is even greater because they're called to lay down their life for the wife, just like Christ laid down his life for the church. So both people are being called to like really lay down their lives and surrender and submit really to the leadership of Jesus. But what are some ways that you have learned as a wife to submit to Jordan's leadership, or maybe some examples of that? And then we also want to hear some things your husband has done, or maybe one or two examples of ways that he's laid down his life for you.
Yes. Well, we got married at such a young age that I feel like Jordan truly laid down his practical, literal life for me, because he could have done so many other things with his life, career, friends, travel, whatever. Not that you can't travel when you're married, or even when you have kids, but just starting a life together, I think, was truly a sacrifice. Obviously, it was a beautiful and wonderful sacrifice, and he wanted to, and we were in love. But I think that's a huge sacrifice, because then his responsibility is not only for himself, but it's for me, and to provide. I think that he shows laying down his life in the way that he works. Just, maybe not always doing what he wants to do, but doing what he needs to do for me and for our family. Yeah, and on my end, I think that it's, I'm going to keep myself in check with the Lord, but I know that God has called me to follow him and to submit to him. So I told him when we were engaged, I said, I'll follow you anywhere. I will literally follow you anywhere. And although, there's definitely still the responsibility for me to follow the Lord, but I do remember that the Lord asks me to do that, to follow my husband, even if he's not perfect. He isn't perfect. God knows that when he asks us to submit to our husbands. He knows that our husbands aren't perfect. So, and I think that submitting to him and going into his leadership truly, just speaks hugely to the Lord, and the Lord blesses that. So yeah, I think a huge part of submission is respect. And I think that it looks as small as the words you choose or the tone of voice you use. Everything is an opportunity to submit. Even in social gatherings or with friends around or speaking to your parents or whatever it is, I have to constantly choose to be respectful. Even if someone isn't being very respectful to my husband, I have to have his back. And I think that's ultimately a huge part of submission. It's just you've got his back in your words, in your tone of voice, in your kindness. Also, this is funny, but like going back to knowing yourself, we have come to the conclusion that it's not very hard to come to, but Jordan's a super like outgoing social butterfly. And I love like hanging out with friends, but I'm more of an introvert, so I can get burnt out. So he has the tendency to like overplan a week and just, we're gonna hang out this person, this person, this person. And especially becoming a mom, I've had to be honest with myself and think, I just can't do that. I can't. Like I've told him before, like that just goes back to communication. I've got to have, a night of the week where we just like sit down and talk, or if, we could let weeks go by and we're just traveling and doing this and that, and we don't like have one-on-one time, although he's wonderful at it, but we can go through seasons being really busy. So getting back to your question, I in social gatherings, like he will literally just be aware of the fact that I'm an introvert and think, you know what, let's just have a night in, even if it wasn't what he wanted to do. But I think that's a huge sacrifice on his end, just like remembering that. He also has this thing. He has a hashtag for surprising Alex Sasser, and he loves to surprise me. And I think that is a huge thing he does to show like him laying down his life. I mean, he will surprise me going on trips. He surprised me with a new refrigerator. I mean, huge stuff. A surprise birthday party. He's so good at it. And that's just like something in our relationship specifically that we just love. I mean, he knows that I love being surprised. But the flip side of that, I felt the Lord reminding me, like, stay surprisable. you know, like your expectations have to be like this, and you have to be ready for anything. So that if he does surprise you right now, are you going to be like, well, I was going to do this, or, but I don't have my makeup on, or, you know, like you have to be grateful and open. And so I think that's something on both of our ends that we've really like chosen to practice, and like it's just grown our love. He's also told me, let's just out-kind each other. Let's see who can out-kind each other. And so I think that's a huge sacrifice and submission. And you know what? Last thing I'll say about that, laundry has been a journey, okay? I mean, in the beginning of our marriage, I used to be so mad. I would do the laundry and like love it or whatever as much as I could. And then I would hand him his pile of folded clothes. And so here, like you can put them away wherever you want. And then like a couple of days later, he'd be like, what, do you know where my black shirt is or this? I'm like, I gave it to you. I don't know, wherever you put it. And so I realized that his strong suit is not putting his clothes away where he wants it. And so I thought, you know what? If it doesn't bother him. So I thought, if it really bothers me, I need to let it go, or I need to do something about it. So I thought, you know what? Putting away his laundry where it needs to go specifically is going to be my way. One little tiny thing that I can do to serve him, and it's going to remind me, like, stay in a servant heart. Stay kind. Try to out-kind each other. Let this be your moment where you pray for him, you know? So that's one way that I have really enjoyed submitting to him.
So I've heard you say several times throughout the interview that you've heard the voice of God clearly. What would you say to someone that's maybe struggling with hearing God's voice, or not sure that they can hear him but desiring to hear his voice? What would you say to someone like that?
Oh man, I love that. I love that. And I have been one of those people before, for sure. I've been that person like, well, God doesn't speak to me. And first of all, don't say that, because he does. And when you say that, you're going to believe it. God is pleased by our faith, and our faith is believing that he is present, and he is with you, and he loves you, and he is always speaking to you. So it's just a matter of praying about it. You can ask the Lord, like, God, speak to me and teach me how to listen to you. And I think that he speaks to everyone differently. My husband would even say, like, oh, the Lord did this and he spoke to me this way, or when I pray I hear this or that. And I would think, like, man, well, he doesn't do that for me, or whatnot. And so I would get jealous. And I remember before we had kids, we had this little apartment, and I was laying on our couch and just praying, like, man, God, would you speak to me? Like, I'm jealous. Jordan hears from me all the time, and I don't. And I truly, looking back, think that it was the unbelief, telling myself, oh, I don't hear from God, you know. But I asked him to speak to me, and Jordan walked in the door. He came from home early from an event or something. I can't remember what it was, but he came in and he said, man, I was just in the car, and I just feel like the Lord wants me to tell you. And he started literally giving me a word from the Lord that spoke right to my heart about being loved and belonging and all this crazy stuff. And I just started crying, because the Lord was like, don't be jealous of Jordan. I'm going to use Jordan to speak to you sometimes. And so it was literally from that moment on that I started seeking out specific ways that the Lord spoke to me. And up until today, there is a number I see all the time that reminds me. It just tells me, I love you, I'm here, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. Like, don't give up, I'm here, I got you. It's kind of just like a best friend nudge, like, I'm here, I love you. I don't even want to give them away because they're so special. And there's a couple other things that I see in nature or whatever. It can be something that when you're having a moment with the Lord and you see something, you can say, God, can you just like show me that every time I need to hear that you love me or something? So I just challenge you to like speak to God like a friend, and ask him for specific things, and ask him questions. And he's going to speak to you. You just have to believe it. Don't let the enemy say to you, well, that's just a bird flying in the sky. No, like if that's what the Lord chooses to speak to you with, believe it, you know? And like every time you see that or hear that, it's God speaking to you, and it's God reminding you that he loves you so much.
Okay, final question. If you could share one piece of advice to a woman soon to be married or newly married, what would your best marriage advice be to that woman?
Gosh, that's good. Yes, so many things. Like, I don't even know if I could title this the best marriage advice, but I do remember hearing from Pastor Andy Stanley that everyone walks down the aisle at their wedding with this box of expectations, like he's going to be the one to turn the lights out at the end of the day, or he's, I'm going to do this. Well, my dad did this, so he's going to do this, or whatever it is, little or small. He's going to do this. He's going to provide for me, and I'll be a stay-at-home mom, or no, I'm going to do this, and he's going to, whatever it is. It's like you have these beautiful God-given desires, and you have them in this box, and you're walking down the aisle. And then you say, I do, and it's like you plop them in their lap. And that night, Andy Stanley, when I heard that, he just said, look to your spouse and said, you're fired. You're fired from trying to hold all that. You're fired from the job of meeting all my expectations, because once those desires become expectations, it just becomes a hindrance in your marriage. And you just have to understand that you cannot expect your husband to meet all your desires. My mentor has told me, Alex, you cannot put all your eggs in the Jordan basket. He's not going to just, satisfy you to every little degree. So you have to put it all to the Lord. You have to give it all to the Lord. And you have to just, you have to have some girlfriends. You got to seek out some friends that you can talk about stuff with. Not a girlfriend to just go vent to, but just someone that, they can relieve all the emotions that a female can have. I mean, it's huge for a man sometimes. So just to have a girlfriend and knowing that your man is not going to meet every single expectation that you have for him, just to be grateful for the man that he is and the ways that he does love and serve you, and just to see that and be grateful for it, and instead of expecting the stuff that maybe he doesn't do well, and to just communicate. Say, man, I would love it if we could just pray together before we fall asleep. Can you do that with me? Instead of letting that, or something, whatever it is, instead of letting those things build up.
That's so good. Alex, thank you so much for sharing all of that beautiful advice. Thanks for taking the time to be with me.
Thank you, Kelly. This was so fun. I love it. I appreciate you inviting me to your show.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this interview and that it added value to your life and really just encouraged you and inspired you to begin building a healthy marriage and to begin intentionally building your own character as a wife and a worthy woman that's loved by God. Please subscribe for marriage videos every Thursday and more Worthy Woman interviews coming about once a month. Love you all and see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.